The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into War Up on the Whippeal, featuring your hosts Greg Warnock and Jeff Upson. PIAA Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome into a brand new edition of War Up on the WPIAA. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson, and we are through the team portion of the wrestling season as we're going to get set for individuals taking off this upcoming weekend. But what a weekend up in Hershey it was. A lot of fun, especially in AAA for the WPIAA.
Yeah, a lot of fun, Greg. Both AAA and AA. I had a lot of fun covering the event, but a lot of good wrestling, man. I love the team states just because you get to see so many high-level guys going head-to-head. It's awesome.
The WPIAL did have one place winner coming back. That is Waynesburg, finishing second in the state, falling short to Nazareth in the championship. But let's first go round by round, as all three WPIAL schools were in the round of 16. Seneca Valley had a big win over State College, 34-29, to advance to the quarterfinals. Waynesburg defeated Central Dauphin 40-21, and Cannon McMillan defeated Gettysburg 45-18. So all three got to the round of 8.
Yeah, it was a big round for the WPIL, and I was slightly concerned about that State College match because State College came out and really they started looking really good coming back late in the match, but they were able to hold them off, and they were without Drew Vlasnik in that match. But Seneca Valley was able to survive, and of course Waynesburg took out my alma mater, Central Dauphin, much to my disappointment. They had a great match against CD. They really fired off some big wins there. So I was impressed with Waynesburg, and I thought, man, they're going to do well against Cathedral Prep.
You mentioned Vlasnik. I think he only wrestled maybe once or twice up in Hershey.
Yeah, twice.
What happened to him?
He's just banged up. I don't know if it's anything specific, but I think he's just, as most kids are at this time of year, they're hurt. Maybe his is a little bit more serious, but he didn't wrestle against State College, nor did he wrestle against Nazareth, but he did wrestle in the wrestlebacks, and they actually that was good for them because they needed him. And Cannon Mac, I thought Cannon Mac wrestled really well, especially despite the fact that they were without GMR Ramus. They had a nice win over Gettysburg, who was undefeated coming into this, and they're a District 3 champion coming in. But Cannon Mac was able to really handle them, no problems, 45-18, and then fall to Bethlehem Catholic. As I kind of predicted. In fact, I actually did predict all four of the place winners in AAA in order. Not to humble brag, Greg.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought Bethlehem Catholic was the better team, but I thought Cannon Mac, if a few matches would have went their way, it could have been a little bit more interesting. So very impressed with the way all three Whippeal teams wrestled in that early round.
Yeah, Seneca Valley dropped a quarterfinal decision 50-10 to Nazareth. Nazareth was just firing on all cylinders up in Hershey. Also want to give a thank you to Kevin Wildrick hooking us up with shirts. He's going to get the love for sure. Appreciate, Kevin, and thank you for doing that for
Absolutely,
us.
Thank you. That's how you can get special love from War Up is give us some T-shirts, man.
Shirts is all it takes. It's a little gesture, right? It's all it takes.
It is,
and you get a lot of love. Usually.
Some would call it bribery, but that's to each his own. But no, Nazareth was firing on all cylinders, as you mentioned, Greg. I mean, they just, I kind of said to Coach Wildrick, man, hey, good luck, because Nazareth is so good, and I had no doubt that they were going to come away with the championship title here in AAA, and they just did prove that. But we can't talk about Nazareth without talking about Waynesburg and how good they looked. In fact, I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said something to me about Waynesburg. Are you telling me they have no seniors? Are you kidding me? Like, everyone was saying that to me, and everyone was saying how good they are and how good they look despite finishing second. So I would say Waynesburg was definitely the buzz of the tournament.
Yeah, and you look at their wins against Cathedral Prep. The big one, Mac Church, again wrestling Jacob Van D, and he gets an overtime win. Van D's closed the gap a little bit. A little concern there for Church at all?
Well, I'd be more concerned about the fact that he lost to Tyler Kasich from Becca. But the Van D match, I thought, I don't know if it's necessarily the big stage, but he looked really calm and then really in control of that match. Van D, while he wrestled probably the best match he could, Mac Church never looked concerned. Like he never really looked like he was worried about how the outcome of the match was going to be. So although it was an overtime tiebreaker match, I still think Church kind of has that upper hand. You can just have that edge on somebody, and I think he has that. Van D is very close, but the guy I'm looking at is Tyler Kasich from Becca. He is really, really good. He was high up on our top incoming freshman report for coming in this year. We hadn't really seen him because he's been injured. In fact, he had been wrestling 13 for a little bit. He's only had, I think, 7 matches total this year. But, man, he's a real deal because he beat not only Mac Church but also Jacob Van D. He's going to be number 1 in the state this week.
Yeah, and that's leading into the Bethlehem Catholic Cannon Mac match. He actually didn't even wrestle. Cale McIntyre took to the mat, and he won by major decision over Jacob Haupt.
12-0 over Jacob Haupt, and he made Jacob Haupt, a really good wrestler, look really not good, right? And McIntyre, McIntyre's had some really big wins this year, and I got to see him at Escape to Rock. I was not entirely impressed with him at Escape to Rock, but looking at the results that he has, he's beaten Charlie Bunton from Nazareth several times, who has a win over Haupt. He's been wrestling really well, but unfortunately, those two are going to have to wrestle off this week. And I got to talk to Coach Karam from Becca, and he's like, it's the worst thing as a coach is to watch 2 quality wrestlers have to wrestle off for a spot. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But if I'm Mac Church, I'm thinking I'm watching that film a couple times to figure out where I can improve upon. And they're both high-quality wrestlers.
Yeah, Bethlehem Catholic got a 39-22 win over Cannon McMillan to get to that point against Waynesburg. You look at that match, Waynesburg and Bethlehem Catholic. When Kasich won that, it's almost like it was like a swing match, right? Because I think Waynesburg was counting on those 3 points. But then Nate Jones getting slammed by Dante Frenzy.
Yeah.
It ends up being really wins it for Waynesburg.
I don't know if that necessarily won. Well, I mean, maybe it did. I knew some Becca folks were a little upset by that situation.
The coach said it was a slam.
No, yeah, but the fact Nate Jones wrestled the next day, he wrestled against Nazareth. So like. How injured was he, right, is kind of what a lot of people were saying is if he was that injured, why did he compete the next day against Nazareth, right?
You could always make that argument, but it's a full day difference. It's not like it's an hour difference.
Right. But I'm just playing devil's advocate and telling you what some folks are a little not that people are upset about a lot of things. We can talk about girls wrestling. We can talk about forfeits. We can talk about a whole bunch of things. But that match definitely changed the complexity of it because you look after Church loses, you're right. I would say it was in Waynesburg favor, although Waynesburg came out really strong. Luca Augustine gets a tech. Darnell Johnson, who looked great this weekend, and Noah Tustin getting a fall. I thought it was smart to forfeit to Banks, and then Ryan Howard got a huge fall for them. After 285, I was thinking, man, Waynesburg's in control. Then, of course, Kasich wins that match, and you're thinking, okay, well, what's going to happen here? And then Nate Jones and Dante Frenzy, because Frenzy, he probably would have beaten. I'm not sure if he would have pinned Nate Jones, but he probably would have gotten at least a major.
So that's a 10-point swing,
right? And
a 2-point match. That's really the difference maker.
Yeah, Waynesburg did forfeit out to 52 and 60, Lackman and Jimenez, but still, you look at the way the match went. Rocco Welsh got on Matt Mayer, he beat him. That Harmon and Shriver match that could have went either way. That was a 1-point match.
But does Bethlehem Catholic bump Mayer?
No, they don't.
The slam.
No, they don't. They absolutely don't. They don't bump Mayer with that slam. So, again, did that dictate the match? I don't think so, but that definitely played a factor into it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, you look back at that match, we've talked a lot about Kasich and Church. Can Church make up the points in another match?
Oh, sure he can. Of course he can. But it just depends on who shows up, right? When he opens up his offense, Mac Church is very, very dangerous. He was getting into his single legs, but he was getting stuck underneath. He's very good. He's so quick at getting to the legs, but unfortunately this weekend it seemed like he was getting to the legs and then stopping. He was getting to legs and getting stuck. So I think he's got to work on cutting the corner or figuring something out when these guys are sprawling on him hard, because he's getting to the legs, but he's just not finding a way to finish. So I think once he gets over that, I think he's golden.
Yeah, he had another tough one in the finals against Nazareth, 1-0 win over Charlie Bunting. Was it the same thing, just struggling on his feet?
Yeah, same thing. A guy who shuts down, and Bunting, and I think Kasich kind of did the same thing, was very low stance, low center of gravity, not to the point like my old friends in Central Dolphin used to do. We used to wrestle on our knees sometimes, Marshall Peppelman got booed many times in the Giant Center for that. Having that low center of gravity, Church was finding a way to the legs, but he just wasn't able to finish, and Bunting was the same thing. He was in on his legs several times. It's just that he wasn't able to finish. And, if I'm looking at it as a coach, I'm saying, okay, we're winning, but we need to figure out ways to win by larger margins, because kind of like we talked about with AHR, you can't win by 1 point against really good guys all the time. It's going to come back and bite you. So he's got to find a way to score on his feet.
Yeah, and we'll talk about AHR in just a little bit with their consolation matches. But when you look at the finals, Luca Augustine had a big win over Connor Hershey, probably one of the bigger ones for Waynesburg.
Yeah, I mean, that's a returning state medalist, and Luca's, he grinded out that win. That was a tiebreaker match there, and he was able to come away with that 2-1 victory over very, very tough Connor Hershey. So impressed with him there. This was a match that a lot of people thought, well, Nazareth's really good, they're going to run away with it. And, there was a few matches where I thought, man, Waynesburg, they could have made it a little bit closer. Blaine Wilson beating Cole Hammett at 32. I probably would not have guessed that. Cole Hammett's a returning state medalist. Blaine Wilson is a journeyman senior for Nazareth who's been in the lineup for many years, but, he hasn't had quite that breakout performance, but he really took it to Cole Hammett. That was an interesting match there. Deshaun Farber pinning Colton Stone King. I thought that was a match that not necessarily was a toss-up because Farber's a returning state runner-up, but I thought Stone King would keep it close with him. It's just things didn't go their way. Darnell Johnson getting pinned at 82, that hurt them. Although Noah Tustin, there's two results here that I'm scratching my head at, because Noah Tustin beating Drew Cleary and Blaine Wilson beating Cole Hammett are not results that you're going to expect. Drew Cleary is a returning state medalist. He's very highly regarded. He gets thrown to his back by Noah Tustin, nearly pinned. And then Blaine Wilson, as I mentioned, he defeats Cole Hammett. Those are results I'm reversing if I'm looking at this on paper. So, like I said, the complexity of the match was kind of weird, but Nazareth definitely looked strong.
And Waynesburg ends up finishing as the number 2 in AAA. When you look in the consolations, Cannon McMillan had a win over Delaware Valley, 42-21. But then they end up dropping a match in the third round of consies to Cathedral Prep, 29-26. And Prep ends up coming back all the way for 4th place. So really that match right there decided 4th and 5th, I guess you could say. But what were your thoughts on that match?
They had wrestled before at the Virginia Duels, and I believe last week you had questioned me when you saw my picks, and you said, why do you think Prep's going to beat Cannon Mac? Do you remember that, Greg?
I do, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to question. You just you're not supposed to just be the guy who knows everything, and we just take your word and just bow down. You know what I mean?
I mean, we could work on that. If you want.
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
I think that's a bad idea.
No, you're right. It probably is. Now, here's the thing. Had Jimmy Baxter been in the lineup, because Jimmy Baxter got hurt in the Delaware Valley match, and he looked hurt. They had to carry him off. In fact, I hope he's okay. I got to say congratulations to him before that, because he just committed to Seton Hill. So it's a shame to see him get injured, especially this time of year. But had Jimmy Baxter been in that lineup, I think this result could have been different, because that definitely plays a factor.
Well, it forced them to bump all the way up.
Right. They forced essentially everybody up a weight, starting with Haupt going up to 13 and so on and so forth. So, this was a match where I thought, just by virtue of Prep having that win before, Prep didn't look great in some of the matches. Like, I thought some of their guys would have competed a little bit harder. Hunter Tierpak at 195, and Luke Sittinger, who's kind of a football guy but has been around for a while. He lost to Matt Furman 1-0. Tanner O'Haley got a pin for them, which kind of made it a little bit more interesting. It came down to 170 pounds. So, and Cannon Mack actually was deducted a team point. So, obviously that could have been a 29-27 match.
Yeah, very close, and one that you could probably wrestle it again and get a different result every single time. When you look at Seneca Valley on the bottom half, they defeated your alma mater, Central Dauphin, 37-28, and then they had a win over Springford, 34-27, to set up their match against Bethlehem Catholic, and they dropped a close one, 33-31. And the highlight match of this one, Kenny Herman defeats AHR.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the highlight match. As you mentioned, a tighter duel, although Seneca Valley received 2 forfeits at 70 and 82, so obviously that changes things if you're forfeiting. Which, by the way, I hate that teams forfeit out matches.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, I just personally, because my first match at the Giant Center when Central Dauphin was at the Team States was as a backup. I wrestled because we had the match locked up, and I was able to compete for that. That was my junior year, I think, sophomore year. So that's an experience I'm never going to forget, right? If you have the guys, wrestle them. If you don't, I understand, like if it's a starter who's especially, banged up, but I mean, put somebody out there. If you have a body, put them out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hate when they do that, honestly. I think it's just ridiculous that teams actually, give up those forfeits, because the whole point of the matches is to advance. I guess the point is to advance, but outside of that, the coaches always talk about how they want to get their guys experience and how much more mat time their guys get, and then how much it benefits them in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think if you have the guy, there's no excuse to go out there and get some experience. I don't know. I mean, other coaches will say different things like, well, I got to protect my guys. And like you said, I got to advance. I don't want to burn them out. And I get it. If you have a starter who's banged up, okay, maybe you hold him out. But, some of these AAA teams especially that have guys at weights, multiple guys, like get them some experience, get people interested in sticking around, because that one match could keep a kid around for a while, because, a lot of guys, especially JV wrestlers on these big teams, I mean, you're not getting a whole lot of matches, so why not get that person some experience? But I don't want to veer off too far into the rabbit hole. However, you look at the Becca Seneca Valley match, yes, the highlight match was 132, where you saw number 1 Kenny Herman take out Alejandro Herrera Rondon, who's number 3 in the state currently right now, but of course he's a 2-time returning state champion, so obviously this one had high implications. Kenny Herman looked good. He looked good. He got a takedown and a reversal. Reversing AHR is a difficult task, right? Because he's a leech man on top. But, I think, and Ali is very cool and calm and collective about things. He was even joking about it after the match. He was not flustered by that loss, and I'm sure him and Coach Kevin Wildrick will go back and look at the match film and say, okay, where can we improve upon? But Kenny Herman's just been wrestling lights out this season. I'm not surprised by the result. I thought maybe a little bit tighter. It could have been a little bit tighter, but it just it was just his day.
If you're AHR, where can you make up the difference? Obviously, you need to ride Herman, but where else can you make the difference up?
On your feet. He's got to find, again, he's so long that he can get to the legs, but he did get to Herman's legs, but Herman's, I mean, he's always in good positions. I feel like Herman's, so his scrambling ability and his just mat awareness maybe goes a little bit unrecognized, because he wrestles almost like a college wrestler, like very positionally centered. Do you know what I'm saying? Like he's very good. He's never out of position, right? So it's very difficult for somebody to score on him. It's why Wyatt Henson frustrated, or it's why Kenny frustrated Wyatt Henson at Ironman. I just think that he's got to find a way to work in a takedown. I think if you take Kenny down and ride him, that's a whole different ballgame, because Ali's one of the toughest guys in the state to score on. So if you're up, he's essentially can ride that thing out. So I mean, finding a way to get to a takedown.
We'll see how that goes because AHR is going to be at 132, so he's not going anywhere. So he's got to beat these guys.
Yeah, I mean him and Willishell. I mean those are guys that he's going to have to beat, and I think he relishes that opportunity. I think he likes having those guys to push him and to compete. And he's not afraid of anybody. I can tell you that right now. He's gonna come out and battle.
How important is it to win that WPIAL title now, though? If you're AHR Willishell,
because
the loser is going to be on the same half as Herman.
For sure, man. If I'm, that's a match, that's a title that you're going to want just to, and by virtue of being separated, just because of the prestige points, and if you don't win your region, you're not considered for that, so you're going to fall where you may. So yeah, I agree that's probably big for him. Some other matches during this duel I thought were a good one. Cal McIntyre at 106, he beat Tyler Chappell 7-0. Again, this kid's really good. Tyler Chappell I thought wrestled really well this weekend, but that just shows you how close him, McIntyre and Kasich are. They're really, really tight there. I thought that Matt Lackman looked good against Antonio Emilio. Antonio Emilio bumped up to 52 a couple times and just I think the weight difference hurt him there because he had a few losses there. So, I think Seneca Valley, for what they had, they battled really tough.
Yeah, and you mentioned Vauclaws and Johnson. They're both solid wrestlers, though, for Seneca Valley, getting those forfeits. So it's not like it's guys who typically would not get a win.
No, I'm not saying Becca was going to get 6 points at both those weights. However, Becca was going to be able to put out some guys that, they probably would have kept it close if not won. So, the forfeits can be misleading. When you look at how tight some of these duels were, if you're forfeiting 3 weights, obviously that can be a little bit misleading.
So when you look at the grand scheme of things, obviously Waynesburg getting the second place nod, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right there. Seneca Valley doesn't get the opportunity to wrestle prep, but Seneca Valley basically number 5, Canamac number 6. Would you agree with that?
I would go as far as saying they were probably number 4, Seneca Valley. Obviously just based on the way the bracket went.
The way Bethlehem Catholic destroyed prep too.
Not necessarily the way. I mean, transitive property is one thing, but I think matchup wise, Seneca Valley matches up better with. I think they would have beat prep had they wrestled them. And I thought they were much closer with Becca, obviously. So I think Seneca Valley was. When I do the final rankings for dual, I mean, I'm going to take that into consideration. I'm probably going to rank them Nazareth, Waynesburg, Becca, and then Seneca Valley. Erie Prep, then Canamac is probably how I'm going to end up ranking them.
So do you have any luck in seeds for this?
What?
I know you always push for it, right?
It falls on deaf ears, man. If it was up to me, some of those teams wouldn't have been there. But we would have had Northampton there. We would have had Hempfield area there. We would have had Mifflin County there. We may not have had some other teams there.
Yeah. So,
unfortunately, but that's the way. It's the way the cookie crumbles, Greg. Especially when it's the PIAA. They would like to do things a certain way, and it is what it is.
Well, Waynesburg had the best performance out of the WPIAL, and I think everybody's already putting them in as the preseason number 1 team-wise for next year.
For sure, because look at all the guys they return back, man. I mean, like I said, everyone was talking about that. No seniors. Are you kidding me?
And as far as like 8th graders, they have guys coming up too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they obviously don't have a Mac Church Rocket Welsh coming up, but they have some good guys coming up. Yeah, there's no doubt that they have some good guys that are going to be placing at PJW states. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to be okay.
I think the biggest question is just going to be how does all the kids fit into the weights?
Right.
I think that is the one question people don't think about when they say, oh, everybody's coming back. What happens if they all log jam?
Right. I mean, look what happened this year. I mean, Colton Stone King, he's kind of in between weights. He's 32, 38, 45-ish. He could probably wrestle all 3 of those. So that's a good kid who's on the bench. That's if they don't spread out, it's not really going to do you any good. You need to have and that's where Nazareth is so much better than they were this year, because there probably aren't going to be any state champions on Nazareth's team this year. There's going to be a handful of state medalists, but I doubt anyone's going to win a state championship. They're just so well balanced. They have 14 guys that battle, man. They have 14 guys that are always going to be in a match, like Blaine Wilson against Cole Hammett. Cole Hammond's probably going to play as it states. Blaine Wilson may not even make the team going into the postseason. He's going to have to wrestle out a couple guys, So like shows the difference with how these programs are. So like Nazareth, I would never count them out.
Well, a guy who's going to try to make sure that they get to the top of the podium next year is Luca Augustine, and he's kind enough to join us now on the phone. Luca, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first and foremost, congratulations on what has been a very successful team portion for you guys. PIAA champions and second in the state. Just talk a little bit about how it feels and what it means to the Waynesburg program to have such a successful year.
I'm really proud of our team and what we did, what we accomplished. We worked hard all year, and I think it really paid off. And I know, we didn't get the, we kind of fell short in the end. And, some people were disappointed with it, but I really wasn't. I thought we made tremendous steps, and we basically made history for Waynesburg wrestling. And I'm just, super excited to be a part of it.
What was it like just being a part of the team all year? Guys, who you got a lot of younger guys, right? No seniors on the team. So just what was it like just being a part of that team, kind of growing up together?
Yeah, I've known those guys basically, once I started wrestling in first grade, and I've worked with them all the way up through. And, they're a lot of, good teammates, and I respect them. And I think we have a good team dynamic there. And, we all push each other in the room, but, we can work hard on the mat and then be friends off the mat. So I think that's really important.
Were there any nerves at all as you guys went into the Giant Center in Hershey?
A few of the people were nervous because they've never been there before. And, I was kind of nervous too. I didn't know exactly what to expect when we walked in. I know a lot of odds were against us, but we went there and got the job done. That's what's important.
And Luca, talk about your season thus far, because you've really opened up a lot of people's eyes. You took 4th at the Ironman, you took 5th at the Beast and the Powerade. Just really wrestling at a high level. What's different about this year than maybe the first 2 years of high school competition for you?
Well, I think what really helped me is over the fall, I went to Super 32, and I didn't really have a good showing there. But, I was I was right in the middle of the recruiting process, and I was kind of stressing about, which school to attend. But once I committed, kind of all the pressure was off, so I could just focus on, focus on now and me wrestling, and I think that's what helped me a lot. And plus, I've been putting in a lot of work over the summer at the Quest School of Wrestling with Jim Akerley, and I think they've really helped me improve my technique.
And talk about that commitment. You're headed to Pitt, correct?
Yes, sir.
Talk about that, and what drew you to the Panthers and staying close to home.
Oh yeah, it was my first official visit of my recruiting process, and I basically fell in love with it as soon as I went there. And I loved it. It was a beautiful campus. The coaches, I thought, best suited my personality, and the team dynamic there is, really, really good. And so it just felt like the perfect college for me.
And going back to this weekend, you had a tough match to end the weekend in the finals. One of the last matches of the day there. You wrestled Connor Hertzig from Nazareth, who's a returning state medalist. That was a tiebreaker match. Talk about that match and what got your hand raised.
My coach told me that Hertzig was a very good wrestler before I wrestled him, and I actually did not know he placed the states the year before, but he was very strong, very defensive, had very good defense. I'd shot multiple times in that match, couldn't really get in on a good solid shot. But I think in the end it was, my defense and my overall top game that helped me win that match, riding him out in that first 30-second overtime.
And you were pretty amped up and pretty excited about that win. how do you keep that momentum rolling into the individual? Because, it's kind of like you're on a high because, you're in the state finals as a team, but now it's back to the lab, and you got to keep on working to get that individual, reach your individual goals. So how do you refocus and get ready for the individual postseason?
Yeah, we're just all getting back. Some people aren't continuing on the individual, so it'd be kind of hard not to, have all your team's, support. But, I just have to focus on, what I have to get better at. And, that includes working on my neutral. For example, against Hershey, I wasn't getting many shots, so I have to work on setups and takedowns, and I think that'll help me overall. And I'm going into Whippeals, I think, number 2, and, just focus on my overall strategy for getting that Whippeal championship.
Who's that number 1, Luca? Who's Jeff Upson got ahead of you?
Jack Bloomer.
I don't know what he's talking about. Luca. I've been very, very impressed with you all season, and just like you said, some of the wins you've had, and some very good match results. And in fact, that match against Drew Vlasnik in the Whippeal match, that was a big win for you because you really came out swinging on that one. So when you can get to your offense, it's there, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was really motivated for that the last big match because he pinned me freshman year in that same tournament. Right. So I really wanted some redemption.
Well, I know you have individuals coming up, Luca, and that's what the focus is going to be for yourself as well as your team. But next year, you guys are going to be coming back fully loaded without any seniors, so expecting everybody back, and plus probably some more reinforcements coming in. How important will it be coming up here in the off-season team-wise to make sure you guys stay focused so you can be at the top of the podium in Hershey next year?
Yeah, we have a great summer program, and we have open mats all throughout summer, and we have a lifting program, and I think just getting everybody in the room, getting everybody, so they don't lose their, feel for wrestling, because it's a field sport. So some of these guys who play football and play soccer, they just need to get in the room once in a while to keep their feel, their mat sense sharp. And I think that's overall what we need to do to continue, going on this high that we have. And as long as everybody stays healthy and finds their spot, on the team lineup, then we should do very well next year.
Well, congratulations on your achievements, WPIAL champions, 2nd in the state, and best of luck as you guys go through individuals.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming on, Luca.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to Luca Augustine for joining us on the show, and he mentioned a couple really good things that I enjoyed. First off, acknowledging basically what we talked about, right? That everybody needs to fill into the right weights for them come next year. So obviously he recognizes that, and so does the team. But I love that I asked him right away, who's that guy who's number 1? Jack Bloomer. He knew right away, and he knows who
he's gunning for, right? I mean, and people are gunning for him too, right? I mean, he's a guy that has gotten a lot of publicity this season for good reason. He's wrestled really well, so I mean, yeah, Jack Bloomer's. He's a good wrestler. He finished 3rd in the state last year. You don't finish top 3 in PA without being pretty good at wrestling, right? So yeah, I think he knows. Yeah, he knows who he has to go after.
AA on the other side, Burrell did a nice job in this tournament. Quaker Valley does not advance to the state championships. They end up dropping a loss to Corey on Monday night. But Burgettstown drops a 56-12 loss to Chestnut Ridge to fall into the consolations in the opening round. Meanwhile, Burrell, though, they knocked off Montoursville 46-21 in the opening round.
Yeah, that was a really good match for the Burrell Bucks. I thought that was going to be a tight match. I wasn't sure necessarily who we were going to see, whether it was going to be Montoursville or Boiling Springs, because, we know what Boiling Springs does. They just do really well in the postseason. But Burrell was able to outmatch Montoursville really well in this match. Corrado got a fall for them. Ian Oswalt got a fall. Trent Vlauchik beat Brock Lutz, he's a good wrestler. He's ranked in the state. He was able to pin him in a minute 23. I thought as soon as that happened, this was over because they're ending with a guy like Ian Oswalt. Even Logan Bechtel got a 3-2 win there at 138 pounds. So all the pieces were in place for a Burrell victory here. And once they got on a roll, they won 13 of 45 straight. So yeah, that was a pretty good showing.
That set up their match against Saucon Valley, where Saucon Valley won 39-29 and knocked off Burrell. But Burrell, they gave them all they could handle. Yeah,
they certainly did. They were in that match for sure. Burrell did receive a forfeit to AJ Corrado at 52, but he's a guy who's gonna put up points.
Possibly 6 right there.
Yeah, I mean, depends on who Saucon Valley would have put out there against him, but they're pretty strong at 60. But yeah, this is a match that I thought it was going to be close, and I thought Burrell did what Burrell had to do in terms of get some of the matchups. They got a couple majors. Szymanski at 113 got a major, which was big for them. Fair got a fall. 106 for them that I thought was big. Although Cale Markle from Saucon was able to get a major on Trent Vlauchik at 26. Ian Oswalt got a tough win at 132 pounds, 3-2. So yeah, I mean, things definitely went Burrell's way, but it just wasn't enough, man. Saucon Valley, they're good. They're a good team.
In a consolation round, Burgestown dropped a 45-26 match to Hamburg, and that eliminated them. So Burgestown going 0-2. Not surprising, but good for them to get the experience and the exposure to the Giant Center. We'll see if that reflects into next year. But for Burrell, they ended up getting a win over Corey, 38-23. Hamburg knocked off Forest Hills, and then that set up the Burrell-Hamburg match for Burrell, won 35-29 to get into the round of 6.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great match between Hamburg and Burrell, and I thought Hamburg wrestled really well in the wrestlebacks. You look at who they beat Burgestown, Forest Hills before meeting Burrell, and Burrell wrestled well throughout. Michael Shearer got a win over Nick James 3-1 at 220. That was a good win for them. When you look at how the matches went, I was excited because I thought we were going to see Ian Oswalt on Kyle Vernon, which is a 2-state ranked guys. And Ian Oswalt, he really tore him up, 10-0, major decision. So you knew that was going to be a big turning point for them. And then AJ Corrado got a fall over Aiden Kaufman, which was big. And then Noah Linderman got a decision at 160. So things definitely went Burrell's way. As I mentioned before, I mean, they just... In Hershey, man, they have so much success, but they're just like that close to a state medal, right? They're just moments away.
Yeah, and they end up dropping decisions to the 3rd and 4th place teams. Chestnut Ridge finished in 3rd, Saucon Valley in 4th, and Burrell I think the pieces just fell apart. I mean, they lost 44-10 to Chestnut Ridge, but I think the frustrations just set in, and just knowing that they were that close to getting that medal.
Yeah. I mean, it was certainly a frustrating scene for them to fall to Chestnut Ridge. Chestnut Ridge came out and won every single match from 195 to 132. Ian Oswalt was the first one to get a win, and it was in tiebreaker at 138 pounds. So, obviously this match was out of hand pretty quickly for Burrell, and that's hard. That's hard to do coming back from how many points down. So Burrell, still a really good tournament, but they weren't there with guys like Chestnut Ridge and Saucon Valley and even Southern Columbia Reynolds. I mean, those are 4 very quality teams. Burrell's just right outside those.
Yeah, just on the outside. Notre Dame GP even right there as well. So you look at Burrell and their season, maybe number 6, number 7 in the state, but just on that outside looking in, and areas for them to improve as they head into next year.
Yeah, absolutely, and they return a whole bunch, right? So that, and of course Burrell's never going to go away. They're not going to just next year automatically be not the Burrell Bucks that they have been for how many years now. So yeah, they're going to continue to compete. So Matt, the question always is, can someone keep up with them in the WPIAL? That's always the question.
I just don't think anybody has the depth that's in the WPIAL, because the problem is for most teams, you have to be deep enough to fill all 14 weights, and you have to be good in at least half. And in AA, that is very hard to do.
It's a hard thing to do, right, like you said. And that's what makes teams like Reynolds and Chestnut Ridge so good, is because they have full lineups, but they have like 8 of those guys that are going to be like top 25 in the state. Right, so and Burrell's had those teams before. Burrell's had it's just when the stars align. But they're going to return a lot. And I'm sure their feeder program's doing pretty well. So they're probably going to win the WPIAL again. In fact, they're probably going to win it for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I guess the question is, can they get top 4 in the state? Because that's really their end game. That's their goal every single year. Don't be the team that ends the streak and be in the top 4 in the state.
Yep.
Can they do that next year? But as you just mentioned, Reynolds is always going to be there. Chestnut Ridge is always going to be there. Southern Columbia seems like they're always going to be there. They've been strong the last 2 or 3 years. Can they keep it going? I think just these teams in AA in general are just every year they keep coming back.
Yeah, no, they certainly do. I mean, the usual suspects, it's so much deja vu there. Like, seriously, I was walking around the Giant Center during AA, and I'm like, it was actually during the AA semifinals. I'm like, did I just go back in time? Because they was exactly like the year prior. The same teams, the same familiar faces. So that's something that's going to continue on probably. Those new teams that come in, those teams like Notre Dame, Green Pond, they're coming in and trying to make a mark, but those familiar faces are always going to be there, it seems like.
When you look at this upcoming weekend, so AA gets underway with their individual wrestling action after finishing up the team portion, and you expect a strong performance here from Burrell this coming weekend. You got sections on Friday. You also have the opening round of the WPIAL Championships on Friday as well, before you get into Saturday's action, which is all WPIAL Championships. So a lot of individual action coming up in AA, and expecting another strong performance out of Burrell. Yeah,
for sure. And you know what? There's going to be a lot of good individual performances from across the WPIAL here. I still scratch my head at what this means, is that they're going to wrestle sections on Friday, but yet also WPIAL championships on the same day. It's very weird to me, but hey, you do what you got to do out here in the WPIAL.
And they seed them pretty quick. Yeah, it's a really quick turnaround.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, because
get back out there. What they do is we talk about this they seed the 3 section champs, and they go by formula.
Right.
And I guess for the WPIAL's take is that they're only concerned about getting the best 7 kids onto the next round at IUP.
So why do we wrestle sections again out here?
Because the coaches want the kids who are in their first, second year to not be discouraged by going 2 and out in the WPIAL championships.
Okay.
It boggles my mind too. I think we talk about this every year in great length, and I think there's a split vote as far as coaches go, but I think these coaches from the smaller schools think that it's better to have these kids wrestle all year for that section medal, and it's where they get their chance. But I don't really understand it. I mean, you get 7 kids to go to IUP. If you can't be in the top 7, sorry, don't get a medal.
Yeah, work harder. Yeah, I don't.
That should be a motivation to you, that if you can't finish top 7 in the WPIAL, to get out there and find ways to do it. So it's mind-boggling. Let's not open that can of worms. So individually wise, there's some interesting things going on across the WPIAL. I think we mentioned that Thane Lawrence is back, right? Thane Lawrence is back in the lineup for Fraser, of course, a 2-time state champion, headed to Lehigh next year, had some shoulder issues, but he is back in the lineup for Fraser, and he'll be competing in the postseason. So, that's really good news, because he's a guy who's been such a steady horse, if you will, finishing 3rd as a freshman, then, of course, winning 2 championships, including that sophomore year when he upset Justin McCoy, who he had lost to the week prior, regionals. So, Thane's a great competitor. I'm happy to see him back. Unfortunately, though, another returning state champion, Dayton Pitzer from Mount Pleasant, won't be making his return to the lineup as a sophomore, which is really a bummer, because obviously, as a freshman who wins an upper weight class, you don't win, I'd say like 45, 52 or above as a freshman.
and not have the conversation of being a four-timer, right? When Thomas Haynes won it as a freshman at 215, there was we're thinking, there's a good shot he's going to become a four-timer.
I think there was no doubt Pitzer would have been a four-timer.
That obviously has to be very, very frustrating for him, and we wish him the best in terms of a speedy recovery. I know it's an injury that he's been working on, trying to get better, a type of knee injury. But you gotta be smart. The end goal is probably to get a Division I scholarship and go off to college and get an education. So he's going to be okay if you win 3 or if you win 2 or 1. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. He'll come back, win 2, a junior and senior. I think it's just a prestige, getting that opportunity to be a four-timer. And the question was, how far could he have gone when he was just being a little banged up? Like, how banged up is he? It has to be enough that you can't go, because you would think in these kind of tournaments you could probably win even while still being injured, at least in the sections and the Whippioles. Maybe even the region. Who knows? Yeah,
I mean, and that's a judgment call, and I'm sure his family, coaches, and doctors are, probably went to lengths to discuss that, and how much mobility will I have, how much pain will I have, and it's a grind. I mean, you're not going out there and wrestling a 500 wrestler. I mean, you're going out there and you're competing your butt off at regions and states. So I mean, it's not. It's not easy, but you're right. The question is how much can you put up with in that sense. So I just hope that he's healthy and focused on coming back next year and just blowing people away, because I miss watching him wrestle, man. I got to see him a couple times last year, and we were always just so impressed by him. I can remember watching him wrestle Scott Joel a couple times from Belle Vernon and thinking, man, this guy's a freshman, So I wish we saw him on the mat, but we wish him the best.
Another guy who ends up taking kind of advantage of Dayton Pitzer being out of the lineup, Austin Wally. He's going down a weight. Yeah, Austin Wally from Elwood City, a guy, and 182 in the state is not very deep, especially with Pitzer not being there. Not a whole lot of depth. In fact, you don't have any returning state medalists. Austin Wally is, and he's been up at 95 for the entire season, essentially. Placed at the Powerade there. He's now descending down to 182, where he'll be for the postseason. So that's big. He's going in as the number one guy in the state now at 182. So that's pretty. I'm not saying it's a tall task for him, but you go from being 2-3, depending on where you look at 195 to now number one at 182. I mean, he's got to be feeling pretty excited. Yeah, no doubt about it. Do you think that he and Pitzer kind of talked a little bit before he made that decision? I mean, I doubt it. I think he was probably looking at his weigh-ins, he was probably planning on going down to 82 for most of the year. So, I think some of these and. Austin's a high-level wrestler. I think, he's already committed to college. I'm sure he's not too worried about where Dayton was going. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think he probably was already planning on going down. So, again, this weekend, sections as well as the PIAA is all going on. Wrestling starts at 3 o'clock on Friday at Cannon McMillan High School. It'll wrap up right around, they're projecting around like 9 o'clock on Friday, and then 9:30 is the kickoff of the opening round. I'll tell you what, though, that opening round... 9:30 at night. It's a late night. It's a long day. I'm in bed at 9:30. I know. Me too. I don't know I don't know. I'm going to have to get a shot of caffeine or something. I don't know what's going to happen here. I'll tell you what, though. The opening round, super quick. I'm going to call right now. We'll say... 60% falls? I was going to say 70%, honestly, in that opening round. There's just going to be so many falls. I feel like we did this last year. We did, how many falls there's going to be in the first round. Yeah, it's probably going to be 70%. I wouldn't be surprised. Dumb. And that's what the top seed getting a bye. That's dumb. Because you have the top 5 from each section going in, so imagine if the top seed wrestled, they would get a fall every time. So, I agree. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Some weights are going to be less than full in the section part of it, so... Sure. Frank Volcano, always very concise and sticking to the time schedule, so I'd imagine that 9:30 will be the start time, but I'd be interested to see if, because I think sections just go so quick. They go so fast. I know you have 3 sections to play with, but they usually just go super quick. So Saturday, though, wrestling is back underway at 10 o'clock with the quarterfinals, semifinals set for 12:20, and they're just wrestling, all the way through until probably wrap up around 2:30, and then a 5 o'clock start time for consolations and championships. So about a couple-hour break in between. So it should be done right around 7, just in time for Penn State, Ohio State.
Absolutely. I'll be there, man. Be there. Can't say I'm going to be at sections and districts.
I'll be there, though. Don't
Good
worry.
for you, man.
I
can tell you what's going to happen.
A lot of falls.
I can tell you almost for person who's going to be the 7 guys going to regions each weight. So, but hey, man, it's cool. I'm looking forward to the postseason starting, though. We're going to have a lot of other things coming at your way. Rankings. This is the week where we, number one, I love doing rankings, but I really, really love doing rankings post team states because of all the changes and all the head-to-head matchups. But also we got section seeds from District 3 coming, District 1. So, we get to see where guys are, especially those guys that may sneak away and sneak into different weights. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and then next week AAAs will come out for District 7. So then from there you'll know exactly where everybody's going to be at weight-wise. So should be a lot of fun to see how it all breaks down. I mean, it's hard to believe, but individuals are here and see how the WPIAL does here in the postseason. Want to thank Luca Augustine for joining us on the show. For my partner Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening in to War Up on a WPIL.